Giles is a licensed clinical social worker, a trauma therapist, a shadow work coach, an author, and spiritual retreat facilitator with over 2 decades of experience. She specializes in helping individuals heal from trauma, particularly in the realms of intimacy and personal relationships, integrating holistic practices, including animism and shadow work, to guide clients towards self-awareness and authentic connection. Laura is the host of the podcast It's Not You, It's Me, where she explores topics related to personal growth and healing. She writes a compelling blog, and Laura is also the power behind the Fantasia Network. And through her work, Laura empowers individuals to reclaim their personal power and cultivate fulfilling and intimate relationships. Something we all want. So thank you for doing the work you're doing, and thank you for joining us today early in your morning. I think the first thing I have to ask really is, could you share a little bit about your early life, your formative years? Can you sort of plot a path from there to where you are today?
Sure. So I was born into an animist family. My mom's indigenous, and she grew up in that belief. And it was, I mean, it's like anybody's culture, it's always running silently in the background. And I didn't realize how impactful that was until I got much older. But she was always really grounded and connected to nature. And I think through her, that is where I got that from. So my life has always been holistic. It's never been compartmentalized. And when people started asking for that is kind of when I started getting a framework around what that means for other people. Because for me, it's just a way of life. And I was bullied as a kid because we were different, culturally different, spiritually different. And I didn't know that I was bullied. I thought that it was just kids being, what kids are. They see the different thing and then they attack it because it
Yeah.
could be dangerous. It's like chickens do that, dogs do that. Um, and it was just kind of a momentary thing for me, and then you bounce back. But later on, I one of my friends was a bullying coordinator, and we were talking about our childhoods, and she says to me, "You were bullied." And I'm like, "No, I wasn't. What are you talking about?" And she's like, "No, that's the definition of being bullied." And I thought about that, and that was one of the things that has really informed me as well, because I think it's about, being aware of what it is to be an outsider and being compassionate for that and standing up for justice, those kinds of things, and making it more inclusive for other people. So I think those are the two things that really kind
Mm.
of shaped me. My mom, who's an animist, and that bullying experience.
Could you explain, perhaps, to people that aren't fully aware, what an animist is, what the
Oh, sure.
belief system is, and how that works?
Yeah. So animism is the belief that everything is alive or conscious, connected, and that we're all one. It's a way of seeing the world where the plants and animals are just as valuable as you. You don't have dominion over anything. You're part of a web, and everything's interconnected and interdependent. So you can't exploit things. You can't exploit people, because what you do to others, you do to yourself. And not to say that you can't eat meat or, everything has to survive, but it's more about keeping it in balance
Mm.
and being grateful for the role that everything serves. Without the rain, we couldn't be here. Without the animals, we couldn't be here. And so you give gratitude to that instead of complaining about, oh God, it's raining again, that kind of thing.
it's it's kind of funny when you think about it, and funny is the wrong word, but there is, I think, a lot of people have this thought that there's us as in humans, and then there's nature, almost like they're separate things. And I've never yeah, personally, I have absolute empathy, and believe exactly what you believe, and I yeah, struggle with that. I think that's where a lot of the challenges come within, certainly environmental considerations, that we've seen nature as something to work for us, that we'll take from and will exploit for the benefit of humans, not not realizing that, but we're all linked together. So if you're hurting this, actually you're hurting yourself.
Yes.
And I don't know whether that's the media that's done that, or whether it's corporations or governments. Why do you think there is that distinction that people make between nature and people?
I think it's trauma. When we are traumatized, it becomes about survival. And when you're in survival mode, then things become resources. People become resources. Everything's about what can I get, and life becomes
Yeah.
transactional versus relational. And you have to turn off that part of yourself that hurts when you see other people hurt. So there's a experiment with rats. I don't know how they do this, but they hook these rats up and they created pain for the rat, and they measured, okay, this is how much pain this rat is feeling. And then they showed a rat, so that the subject rat was shown another rat being hurt. And there was more pain when the other rat was being hurt than when he was experiencing it himself. And all mammals do that. That's compassion. And somewhere along the line, humans have largely lost that. You know, when you go on social media any day of the week, you can see tons and tons of videos of people filming other people's pain
Yeah.
or even creating their pain. You know, if you see somebody in Walmart and you're taking this picture of them because you think they're hilarious, and now you exploit them and humiliate them in front of the world, that's because we don't have compassion. That very first level of compassion, according to Gabor Mate, who is one of the leading people now in trauma, there's 5 levels of compassion, and the top ones are the ones where you can feel that interconnectedness. So you're not going to get there until at least level 3. So level 3 is I am not better than you, I'm not worse than you, we're the same. So I can relate to your issues even if I don't particularly have them. I'm not an alcoholic, I don't have any alcoholics in my family, but I believe I could be under the right
Yeah.
circumstances, and we all have addictions to something. So we're the same. And if you don't have that, there's no way that you're going to get to the top level where that animism connection happens.
Gosh, I wonder how many people globally actually have that
I think most of us. I mean, think
level of
about it.
compassion.
You know, it wasn't until recently in history that we had a system where slavery was looked at as abhorrent. For all of history in every single culture, Chinese, you
Yeah.
know, that we look at it as a white black thing. It's not a white black thing. It's been human history forever. So I
Yeah.
think we're progressing. But when you have that sort of mindset where everything's here to be exploited, then of course you have intergenerational trauma, and it's trauma throughout the cultures. I do see it as progress, but you know, we need healing.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's sort of, yeah, I think it feels like almost, I'm not sure whether it's acceptance, acknowledgement, and then healing. Is it how we go about it? And how was your spiritual perspective and your compassion? How has that influenced your approach to intimacy and healing and working with people?
This is another thing that's kind of been invisible. What has helped me with that is relationships with people who are not like me,
Okay.
because I get really curious about, okay, what is motivating this person? How does this person see the world?
Hmm.
And then seeing it from that lens, it's kind of like a kind of, what do you call it, reverse engineer?
Yeah.
Because I don't mean to set myself apart from anybody at all, especially after I just said everybody's one. But there's a lot of perspectives in Western culture I just don't understand. And thank God I'm a therapist, because people tell me things and I'm like, oh, okay, that's really interesting. What might that be like? So it's the thing that really turned this on for me is I've been taking people on spiritual travels for 2 decades. And I see the impact that this has on people. I see them soften. I see the connection that's made. I see the connection with nature that's made, because we spend a lot of time in nature typically. And they're different, you know, and this difference lasts for a while, and then they have to come back and do it again. It's like you forget because you go back into
Yeah.
the mainstream world. And for a long time, I'm like, okay, what is causing this? And I thought it was the sacred sites, because they do have wonderful, wonderful energy,
Mhm.
and that's part of it. But I think the most important part of that is the energy of the group. So you get in a space where you can be vulnerable, you can be intimate because it's safe, it's emotionally safe, and people come out and you can see who they truly are in their heart space. And when you're there, then none of these things that maybe existed before, like politics and race, and none of those things matter. And you're connected in such a deep way, in a big way, to nature, into the whole universe, yourself, all of it, that it changes you. So I think that really, really makes a difference. And if you've never experienced that, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I'm talking to something that can't go in there. It's just a concept.
And how hard is it for people to hold on to that feeling, that knowledge, once to go back into and it's the wrong phrase, but once you go back into the real world, into their day-to-day work and shopping and driving a car, how hard is it to hold on to the knowledge that they've gained from being in a retreat?
I think it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, quite often, actually, it goes bone deep and they never totally lose it. But I would say about a month, you're back into your routine again. It's different, but you're
Mm.
still, mainstream.
And when you encounter somebody, one of your clients, or a colleague, or somebody you just meet at a party or a social event, whatever, and they have a very, very different view of the world for you, do you see it as a responsibility to try and open their mind a little bit?
Not at all. I think everybody is where they are and it's okay. It's all part of the whole, and everybody will get where they're going when they're ready. So, one of the things in the introduction is like, wow, who is that person? There's been a lot of stuff. But one of the things you didn't mention is that my very first professional experience was in past life regression, and I still do it today. I think it's a wonderful healing tool. And what I saw in that experience, both for myself and for anybody that I've ever worked with more than once, is that we do the same dumb stuff over and over, lifetime after lifetime, both in this lifetime and in others. And when I saw that in myself, I was just like, wow, what a waste of time. But also, it's just like you have all the time you need. So, if somebody is somewhere and it's not very healthy, it's okay. It's really okay. It's not my responsibility to help you. In fact, I think it's a boundary violation. When you're ready, I think everything that we need is right here all the time, but it's like
Mhm.
we have blinders on and we don't see it. I think it's always there. So I don't think it's my mission to to save people at all.
Can I challenge that?
Sure.
Um, does it is it not the isn't that the case then, that you have the ability to help people and to improve and enhance their life more quickly than they would by themselves, but you're resisting it?
No, I don't think there's any resistance at all. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's the absence of resistance that allows me to be effective. I'll
Okay.
meet you where you are. I'm
Okay.
not going to walk ahead of you. I'm not going to walk behind you. I will walk beside you. And I think from my own perspective and going through the things that I have, I don't like when people are pulling me along.
Mm.
I want my pace to be respected. I want my hesitancy to be respected because there's a reason for that. And I'll do what I need to do when I feel safe. And maybe that means I just need to sleep on it. Maybe it means I need more information. Maybe it means I need to work on something else first. But when
Yeah.
I first started working in therapy, I wanted it fast. I wanted it quick. It's the Western thing. And that's what I went for. And that's what we did. We did, let's get this fast. And people would get fast change. But then if you don't work on the foundation, it's going to crumble. So
Yeah.
it's not really working efficiently.
Mm. Yeah, and I wasn't challenging you because I don't agree. I was just trying to get to that point. I think, which makes complete sense. I mean, I guess two things in my life, which will probably sound like tiny things, but I used to smoke a lot when I was younger, and people would say, "Oh, you need to give up. It's not really good for you. You need to stop. You need to stop." And it was only when I decided
Right.
to stop, and I stopped straight away. I sort of stopped from whatever it was, 20 cigarettes a day. Just stopped 20 years ago. I've never had a cigarette since. And the same with drinking. So I used to drink. I don't think I ever had a problem, which I'm sure somebody with a problem would say. But I always thought that it just doesn't feel right for me doing this. And at one point I just thought, right, I'm just going to stop. And I stopped. And then what are we now? Sort of 14 years later, I've never had a drink. But I think if I've been persuaded, as I could have been, oh, you need to stop for your children or for your wife or for your health, whatever, I don't, even though they're better reasons to stop it for myself, almost as that external piece of your family and your loved ones, etc. I think until I was ready, it was going to be much harder. But then when I was ready, it was nowhere near as hard as it would have been if I'd been doing it
Right.
for other reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, I think there's an internal change and an external change too,
Yeah.
because there are lots of people who stop, but inside they're still the same. And
Yes.
when you have changed on the inside, the outside's easy.
Yeah. 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 And I totally agree. I do think we all have the capacity to be addicted to or prone to or whatever, given the right circumstances.
Right.
So I think
Yes.
having compassion for that person, recognizing that that person is me in a different
Yes.
situation. Really, I think that's what.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So when you think about and talk about intimacy, I think it's hopefully obvious to most people what intimacy is in terms of the physical aspects. But how do you define intimacy, almost on a mental state beyond the sort of physical?
When I'm talking about intimacy, I'm almost always talking about that. I'm not
Mhm.
talking about the physical because I think if you don't have the emotional, the spiritual intimacy,
Mm.
then how can you really have it physically?
Yeah.
It's something that happens from the heart, and you have to be safe. You have to have trust. So these are all things that I think just evolve naturally if you're not traumatized.
Yeah.
Your heart is open, then you're just open to whatever experience is there for you. And I think it's all wonderful. It's all, even pain is, it can be wonderful. We can't birth life without pain. And it's an amazing experience. I mean, the whole time, so I have a daughter, and I just kept looking at her like, oh my God, this is a miracle. How did you ever get here? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Life is a miracle at every aspect of it. The wind that blows, wow, that's amazing. How does it do that?
Yeah.
The water that flows. And when your heart is open like that and you can share with somebody, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. You could be talking about something that seems superficial, but if your hearts connect, then you're in a special space, a special intimacy space,
Mm.
and you had an experience with that person. You can do that without saying anything. It's witnessing. And I think there's so many times that we need that and we don't get it. But I think it starts with each person. If I'm not good, then I can't be that for you.
And sadly, I've learned on doing this sort of podcast, talking to some wonderful people, that a lot of people have had trauma in their life, whether it's been a physical trauma, a mental trauma, or often both. Particularly, it seems to be for women. How can you almost create a space in your own mind that feels safe to enter into an intimate conversation, dialogue, relationship if you've had that trauma? Is it a case of, I'm not sure what the right word is. Is it healing the trauma?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm glad you said, is that the right word? Because I don't think it's the right word. That's the word we use.
Yeah.
But I don't think, when we say healing, that implies that there's something that needs to be fixed or something
Yeah.
that's broken. And lots of people say that. And I don't think it is. So, in my perspective, the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, the painful, the happy, the joyous, the free, those are all opposite sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
And you can't have one without the other. So if pain is part of it, then there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we need to go to the other side of that. And when you have both sides, now you have wholeness. So if I can accept my trauma,
Mhm.
my pain, my not so good parts of my life, now I'm whole. There's no resistance of it, and energy can flow freely, and everything shows up just as it is. So there's no projection, there's no need for things to be as they are. It's compassionate, it's intimate, it's the way that nature is outside
Mhm.
of us.
Mhm.
The trees don't cry when their leaves fall. It's just what they do.
Yeah. I've been reading quite a lot lately because the subject fascinates me about the notion of generational or inherited trauma. There's a book called Our Body Keeps a Score, is when I started. And a lot of that, the basic premise is that we carry feelings, sensations, trauma, and I'm sure happiness from our parents, grandparents, great grandparents, etc. And we carry that with us. First of all, I wondered if that's something you have empathy with and sort of support. And secondly, can we sort of almost draw a line under that trauma, or do we just, does it keep being passed down to generations?
So yes, I do believe in intergenerational trauma, both from a science perspective, which has been proven
Yeah.
through epigenetics, and from a spiritual perspective, and that's kind of what animism. Most animists have ancestor veneration. That's what that's about. It's about drawing your power and healing the unhealed. I'm using that word healing, making whole the unclean parts of a person. So in animism, when somebody dies, funeral rituals are super, super important.
Okay.
Hopefully, this person has done their work throughout their life. But even if they don't, the people who are left behind have all kinds of rituals to help them get to the other side. It's also for cleansing of the soul so that junk doesn't get passed down. We want to make sure that everybody is clean. There's no hungry ghosts. Your life ends when it ends, and nothing but your beauty is left behind to nurture the rest. But that hasn't happened for thousands of years. Most of the animist cultures have been wiped out. And so we don't do that. And so what ends up happening is the pain gets passed down, and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier for each generation. So it's not, somebody doesn't become an alcoholic. It's in the family line. That's not, I don't think it's a disease. I don't think that there's a gene for that. It's the culture. It's, I'm traumatized. I don't know how to deal with it. Here's how I'm learning how to deal with it. And then when I have kids, they're socialized into the same thing. Oh, I saw you do this. This is what I'm going to do. And some people might say, well, my parents drink and I didn't drink at all. No, you didn't, but I bet your kids do. So when you typically, there's that both sides of the coin. So you have the kids that drink and you have the kids that absolutely don't drink. I don't want to be like you. There's two sides of the coin. So you can pick a side. It's the same thing until that energy is released. So trauma is energy. And wherever we have blockages, wherever we're withholding, it just stays there and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So every time something happens and that trigger is hit again, then it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And that pain comes from not feeling it. So once we can feel it and let it go, it opens up. It's like a river that's been undammed, and now everything evens out, becomes balanced and healthy. And it's still there because you still have that coin. Everything is possible, but I don't have to give energy to that. Now everything else is accessible. So the opposite of pain, pleasure, now I can access that, because people who have trauma have a really hard time being happy. They have a really hard time being connected.
It's super interesting you said that. I mean, I think when we were communicating before talking today, I sort of mentioned that my dad passed away about a month, and my mum passed away about 18 months ago, and I haven't. I wish we knew the right words for these things. I haven't sort of released, if that makes sense, or almost allowed myself to explore the emotion. I think part of it is a bit like your analogy about it's like you undam the river and the river flows. Mm-hmm. My sort of fear is that I'm down the river and everything just floods. It just keeps coming, and I'm sort of washed away with it. So I sort of, do that, which I absolutely know is not the right thing to do. It is sort of either push it down or build the dam a bit stronger, or just try and ignore it. And I know that's not healthy, but I guess it's one of those things that at the right time, maybe it releases itself, and you can't force it. Sorry, this wasn't meant to be free therapy. It's just when you were saying that, I was just sort of feeling, gosh, that feels what it's like. When you mentioned before about past life regression and exploring previous lives, it's something that's always fascinated me, and something that I've always been too nervous or anxious to try. So what is the experience like? What do people take from it? What are they like afterwards?
So typically, what comes up is something that's stuck,
Okay.
and it unsticks it. You get a story, you get a reason why, you get where it started from, and it doesn't always. So the way that I was taught, it was kind of like catharsis. Okay, now you get it, and you can let it go. That doesn't always happen. Sometimes you need somebody who knows how to get that moving a little bit.
Yeah.
But I would say 50% of the time, once you have the story, the rest of it goes. And it's relief. It can let go of the pattern. So a lot of times it has to do with relationships.
Hmm.
Why do I attract the same kind of guy?
Yeah.
Why can't I find love? I had a guy once who he had a pattern of getting the girl and losing the girl, getting the girl and losing the girl. And he was married, he had kids, but it wasn't his first love. And he all these years later was just pining for her. Why can't I get her? And we did a past life regression. She was there. He lost her back then too. And the healing part of for him was realizing that, so he thought it was about when am I going to get the girl? When he came out the other side of it, he realized it wasn't about that at all. He was focused on the wrong thing. It was about when am I going to accept the love that I have?
Yeah.
And he completely turned his life around and devoted his life to his wife and child and be like, oh my God, I have everything. What am I doing? So you never really know the way things are going to turn out. It's typically a surprise. Sometimes you see yourself as really horrible. You've done really horrible things. And I think that's useful too. A lot of people are afraid of that. What if
Mm.
I was a murderer? What if I was, and I've seen myself like that. What if I was crazy? And what I think comes out of that is compassion. You realize, oh, I could be that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, we've all got it within us to do extraordinary things. Both
Yes.
if the words good and bad are correct, both good and bad. It's just circumstance, situation, feelings, emotions that drive those things. Really. One of the things that I read when doing some research into you and looking at what you've written and some of the things you've done was really fascinating to me. And I'm really glad you sort of wrote about these things and talked about it. Is the epidemic, I think it's the right word, of loneliness. And I think one of the things that's happened in society, particularly over the last sort of 10, 15 years, is that we are able to connect, with these silly devices with anybody in the world. You're thousands of miles away across an ocean, and we're talking quite comfortably, and it feels very nice, and we're having a nice conversation. So we have the ability to connect with anyone in the digital realm. But I do think, and I've got a teenage son and teenage daughter, and I sometimes see this with their friends, that they somehow would maybe lost or damaged the ability to connect in person, which I think is driving the level of loneliness. And I just wondered if you could, share your thoughts on some of the work you've done, the research you've done, and you're thinking about that.
Yeah, I think that having it so easy to get what you want, not just socially,
Mm-hmm.
increases the loneliness and the distance because we don't have to use those soft skills. We don't have to be able to read people. I can just go on Chat GPT and ask a question. I don't have to ask you. You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't need that human touch. I don't need my mom to show me how to bake a cake. I can just go on Google. And because we don't have that human connection, and the years that we had the masks on, you don't see somebody's mouth. I heard that there are kids now who have speech impediments because they
mm,
didn't see your mouth move. So it
yeah,
has a lot of implications, the lack of human touch. And I don't think Western culture tends to be low touch.
mm,
We don't hold our babies. And these things matter, and sending our kids off to school and having other people educate them and do all these things. We outsource everything. We're not hands on with anything. We don't grow our own food. I mean, I think all of that lends to loneliness because we're separated from every aspect of life. Everything is done for us. We buy clothes that somebody else made, everything. And so, what do we need other humans for? You know, humans are meant to be tribal. We're not tribal.
But that would you say? And I think that's a particularly Western notion. So I've been really fortunate, I think anyway. And I've travelled to, I can't remember now, 41 or 42 different countries, and I've worked in some, and I've holidayed in others, and I've always tried, if possible, to try and have an experience in a country, not just sort of visit as a visitor. I want to try and absorb a little bit of the country, and I've certainly noticed if I've been to China or India or lots of parts of Eastern Europe, etc. There does seem to be more of an extended family, and family would not just be blood relatives, but people that have come into the family for whatever reason. And I think and the sense of community seems to be greater in non-Western countries. Does that resonate with what you think?
Yes, that's been my experience in traveling as well. And that's why when I first began traveling, it was almost exclusively to third world countries because
Mm-hmm.
I wanted that high touch experience. I wanted that family type experience. Even if you're not with locals, you feel it in the grocery store. You feel it in
Yeah,
the
you do.
restaurant.
Yeah.
It is communal. It is tribal. Everybody is way more connected than here. And I think if you think about the United States, you know, we are a country of immigrants, and most of these people are fleeing something. You know, I came here for a better life, and so they carry their trauma with them. I fled the potato famine. I fled political
Mm-hmm.
corruption. I fled something. And so we're a country like Australia that's founded on trauma.
Yeah.
And the more affluent people got, the better they got at being comfortable and taken away from the trauma. So I don't have to deal with it. I'm in my big gated community. I have a big house. I don't have to talk to people in the house, you know? And I think we've gotten better at being comfortable, but we haven't looked at the reasons why we need all this distance.
Mm.
They don't have the luxury of that in third world. You have to figure it out. You know, your family's not going anywhere. They're either right there with you or they're upstairs or
They are.
downstairs or next door. They're
Yeah.
right there.
And if perhaps you only ever lived in America, or particularly the UK, from what I can see, is that you've always had that. Even when you stand and talk to somebody, we stand quite a distance apart. Never mind the 2 meter rule. We stand a distance apart just generally. But if you go to a country that has a different cultural upbringing, I think a lot of people that I've talked to and have been feel very, very overwhelmed by the whole thing. Oh my god, it's so noisy, it's so busy. People all over you. People are just touching you and things, and it's just a. And once you sort of get, I found once I sort of got past thinking about that in a sort of a UK centric way, thinking, well, this is wonderful. There is a communication. I can go into the coffee shop and actually have a conversation. I go into the grocery store and I can, yeah, the lady on the till or the guy wants to talk to me and find out about me, and they're interested. And I think certainly in the UK, if somebody went to a grocery store and they were from, no idea, Nigeria or Bangladesh or India or wherever, there just isn't that same level of interest really. And I think other countries seem to be very interested in people. That's what I took from traveling. That there is that, yeah, people want to know. That people are curious, and I think that's, yeah, one of the challenges when we're lonely. We just almost forget how to talk to people, which I think is
Yeah.
really, really, and it's not something we're taught at school. It's not something we're taught generally. People communicate via their phones, via their devices. Taught to ChatGPT, don't even need to talk to a real person. So
Right.
it's hard. How can we help our younger people to, once they're ready, to embrace their, yeah, other cultures, other people, the notions of beyond self, I guess.
One of the greatest things that I've experienced was volunteering.
Hmm.
So I went on a Native American reservation And there was this church there with a bunch of youth, and they were there to help. They didn't do a whole lot of helping, but the community was so amazing in what they gave and what they shared of themselves that I mean, I wasn't one of them, but it, as of me, I'm used to that type of thing. I was deeply moved. I was
Mm.
deeply changed and so grateful that they allowed us to come because everything was, I don't even know. Now we're getting into this ineffable space where there's not words to describe
Yeah.
that connection. You could feel it in the grass blowing in
Mhm.
the wind. It just felt like nature is here. You are home, and this is not my home, but my home on earth. And there wasn't a need to do anything because it was all just so perfect. And all you needed to do was just be with it. We had some of the most amazing conversations. There were a few older people there, like us, but they were mostly kids. And I think it's just being in the energy of that because with energy, the strongest energy is going to pull the other energy to the same
Yeah.
frequency. And I think that's what happened because it was just amazing. And I think, what you were talking about, you like to travel and once you get past that hump of, oh God, there's so much noise. And, if you just let yourself be there, it will reach you. So my first experience was also like that. I went to Egypt. That was my first experience traveling, but the first
Okay.
time that I ever went and was touched by the
Pretty full on.
community. Yeah. It was overwhelming. There was so much noise. There was so much traffic. It was so dirty, and it was just I was assaulted. But underneath that was the beauty of the people,
Hmm.
and and every day I felt like I was floating on air. It was just so amazing. And I just like, wow, to have, so I have my family and it's like that with my family, but to be in a whole culture like that is something different. So I think what can change people, young people, old people, is to be in a setting where there's more than just you that can carry that along. If the land is there, you have other people there, you'd have to be pretty dense not to absorb it.
Yeah, I think it's sort of getting past that voyeuristic nature we have to sort of be on the outside and watch and observe versus almost break through that and
Yeah.
go into it, be, like I say,
Yeah.
be part of it and absorb things. And I think sometimes we sort of just, we're on the periphery, we sit and watch, and we sort of come back home and we sort of go, oh, yes, it was so noisy there. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't get an English newspaper. I couldn't. Oh, it was so. But I think if you sort of let yourself become part of it, as we are, we're as connected with somebody in Egypt as we are with somebody in London. It's the same thing, but I think you've got to get past that observational stage and
Yeah.
almost be part of it and don't. It is overwhelming, but just break through and try and be, because it'll feel much more comfortable in that way.
Well, then there's another thing too, and that's a talking circle.
Hmm.
So I host a talking circle once a month. And when people go at first, they're just like, oh, this is weird. Because it's not conversational. You're not talking back and forth. You're speaking from your heart and
Hmm.
allowing people to witness. That is so scary. So scary. I mean, you don't even have to be saying anything particularly, earth
Yeah.
shattering, but to speak your truth in front of other people and know that they're not there to judge you. You can't take it back. and and I think just being vulnerable and allowing yourself to be seen helps. That was another thing that was really transformative for me. I used to be, because of that bullying, I used to be really shy and just would sit back for a long time. It's slow to warm up. After the talking circle, I don't care because what are you going to take from me? So what? You've seen my truth. What's bad about that?
That's something we don't typically do. I think sort of say our truth, or whatever. I guess the nearest we might come to it, and this is a terrible comparison is if you're Catholic and go to confession, you sort of tell your truth, but then you are being judged as well as absolved because you're given penance to do, and it's not just a case of I'm saying this out loud for anybody to hear, and I've said it now. That's it. I don't require any input. I don't require any acknowledgement. It's just I've said my truth and it's out there. And does it feel quite cleansing when you do it?
At first, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
The first few times, I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I said that," And then you realize nothing bad happened, and it is the truth. So I felt empowered by that. I felt like I had a gun to my own head, and I just put it down. Nobody was telling me you can't say that, you can't think that, you can't. I was doing that, and I just said I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like almost like the truth we hold on to limits us, because I think we maybe anticipate or assume what exposing that truth is going to bring about, and sometimes when the truth does come out, or you do, it's like, oh, was that it? It's like, well, the roof didn't cave in. I didn't lose my family and all my friends, and everybody abandoned me. It's, oh, okay. You've held on to that for so long, and that's one of the things that I find when I've sort of talked to people, is that one of the big challenges that a lot of people will say is they find it very, very, very hard or very uncomfortable to communicate deeply with their partner. And so I've talked to a number of sex workers on this, as they call themselves on this podcast, and a lot of them say that the reason that people come to them isn't necessarily for the physical act. It's the fact that the things that they want to talk about, want to explore, want to say, they just feel they couldn't ever say to their partner. And yeah, it's and they acknowledge that sometimes it's hard when you've been with somebody for 1 year, 5 years, 20 years to sort of come out and say, oh, that thing we've always done, or I don't like that, or I've always wanted to do this, or this happened to me, or I'm sensitive about this, or yeah, I'm not sure what we feel will happen. But how if perhaps a couple comes to you and says, look, we're really finding it hard to communicate, obviously we love each other very much, but we're finding it difficult to have those intimate conversations, how do you help them or guide them to almost create that safe space to have those conversations?
So typically when that's going on, it doesn't have anything to do with the person in front of you. It has to do with you and your past. So that's where I'm going to go. And then, and we're going to go there through your body. So I'm not going to say, oh, this comes from your childhood. You're going to tell yourself where it comes from. And we're going to go back there and we're going to release that energy. And then it frees you up to be who you are. This is what I'm talking about, holding on, withholding. It's always going to be something like that, because at the core of each of us, we're perfect. Everything flows. We're part of everything. It's all this stuff that we take on, and it's nobody's fault. When we come into this world as babies, and even in utero, because we're still conscious in utero, we feel threatened, and we have to find ways to protect ourselves, and we do the best that we can. And these strategies, they might help us to survive the moment, but they don't help us to be free. And so we have to let go of those, learn healthier strategies, and then we can be our true selves. Each time we do that, we're typically putting on a mask. So if I can't communicate with my partner, I put on a mask. They think I'm this person.
Yeah.
And this is who they love, and I'm going to take it away. What if they don't love me anymore? I think that's what's going on there. So when you remove the root of that, then it becomes easier to let go of the mask, because you don't need it anymore.
I like that. People often talk about putting a mask on and role playing and stuff, but I think taking the mask off is probably, as you say, the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, my little dog's trying to get in there. One of the things I mentioned in the beginning, and one of the things that you do is shadow work. And I wondered if you could explain that a little bit, and explain how that works in terms of healing and connecting.
So shadow work is our blocks. They're unconscious blocks. So if nobody's going to come in and say, "Oh, I need help with this," because they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know what it is. But in working through the body, it often comes up anyways because the body knows everything. Probably
Hmm.
heard that in the body keeps the score.
Yeah.
So that's all that means with shadow work. It gets at the stuff that you didn't even know was there, and we all have it. We all have it, tons of it. And I think the more conscious you are, the more that you can see. So here's how you can see it. When you get triggered about anything,
Mm.
there's something there that you don't know about. I was triggered yesterday, and it was about my website was down, and it was only supposed to take a few minutes to, it shouldn't have impacted anything at all. It took 3 days. And I'm talking to this person. They're saying, "Oh, they're giving me the same story." I'm like, "Okay, it's been 3 days, and now I'm starting to escalate." I'm like, "No, you. This is what you've been telling me the whole time. This is not the problem. You need to talk to somebody else." They escalated. They got somebody else. They fixed it. And I felt bad that it had to get to that level, but I was triggered. I'm like, "You are not listening to me. You are not being effective." That's a trigger. So
Mm.
when we are, they say that if it's hysterical, it's historical. So if I am escalating, there's something underneath that because in most circumstances, there's no reason why we can't just talk calmly. You know, if we can't, it's related to something in the past.
Mm. It's interesting to say that. So I find that most of the things that trigger me tend to be what a lot of people will see to be very, very small things. The big things I'm fine with. They're sort of they're big things, and they're going to move at the pace of a glacier or whatever, or they're not necessarily going to move that quickly. It's the small things really, which you think, oh, that's just so stupid to think about that. And then yeah, and then they never necessarily get, because they're small things, they never get resolved. And I think, oh, just go off and sort of sulk for a few hours or walk out the room for a few hours, whatever, and don't come back. But it's but I think a lot of those are things that I or people sort of hold on to, and it's something that, yeah, something in the body that's making that trigger
Mm-hmm.
activate. Okay. I feel like I've got a lot of work to do. When you so what I've sort of heard, and maybe I've misheard, so forgive me if I have, is that the majority of almost all of the again, choice of words, issues or challenges or all the things that we've deemed to be negative that affect us, impact our relationship with other people, they all come down to the person and how they think, feel, emote, as opposed to the situation and the other people. Have I heard that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So in the situation the other day when I was getting heated,
Mhm.
that was about me. I could have said everything I said without all that.
Yeah.
So, my trigger was not being listened to. I'm also triggered by inefficiency. If it's gross
Mm.
inefficiency, if you're just whatever, but if it's just like ridiculous, then I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, that's something in me that's just not at peace.
And is some of that because we haven't necessarily been taught or guided to the importance of loving ourselves and accepting ourselves?
Yes, and in kind of expanding that a little bit,
Mhm.
I talked about
Yeah.
level three of compassion being you and I are the same. Um, so what happened in that situation was I lost my empathy for that person.
Hmm.
And in doing so, now I'm mad at you. So, what made me do that? What made me separate from that person that I could escalate?
Mm.
Yeah. So it's always about me. We talk about in the big scheme of things, we talk about politics, we talk about war, but the Israelis and Palestinians, they're people.
Hmm.
The Russians and the Ukrainians are people. So when you are shooting at them and killing them, you're killing a person. That is like, I can't wrap my head around that. What has happened that we can't talk to each other? You know, at the end of the day, everybody wants to go home to your family. Everybody wants to eat. Everybody wants to be safe. Can we just connect around that? Can we find a
Mm.
way to do that?
I think I think a lot of that is that people can be comfortable and accepting and loving towards another individual. So you'll often hear people say, you know, if they're accused of racism, but I've got a black friend, and it's always or I've got a gay friend or whatever. If it's a sexuality thing, then you think, well, okay, but that's individuals, but they'll still hate on the notion of they'll hate Russia, but can love a Russian, or
Yeah.
they'll hate
Yeah.
Israel, but they'll have an Israeli cousin as their best friend or whatever. And I don't understand why, because let's say Israel is made up of lots of individuals, so and the notion is individuals that are connected to one another, connected to you, and etc. So why do we find it acceptable or easy to love a person but hate a group of people?
My guess is that it's transactional.
Okay.
So if I know a person and I'm getting something from that person, great. We can have a great time here. But how much do I know them?
Yeah.
And if I'm not getting anything from you, then it's easy to demonize you if I'm coming from that lens.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's not just it does come down to me, but having a relationship with somebody, they have to be open to receiving as well. I can't have a relationship with somebody who's not. I love the UK. And it was probably my second trip there, and I'm visiting this castle, and this guy comes up to me. He wants to do a survey, and I was like, "Sure, I'll talk to you," you know. And we're talking, and I'm talking like I'm talking to you, you know. I'm kind of animated, I'm smiling, and he thought I was hitting on him. I know he thought I was hitting on him. He was just laughing and giggly and all of this stuff, and I'm like, "Oh my God," I'm just being American.
Yeah.
And so it can be hard to talk to people if you don't have a connection because they're projecting their stuff on you. And if we're not on the same page in the same place, so if we're not mindful and present, I'm here with you, I'm accepting you for who you are, you're accepting me for me who I am, then there's a lot of projections that happen. And I think it's easy to make a collective the boogeyman because that comes
Yeah.
from my fears. I'm
Yeah.
afraid of getting swallowed up by the big bad wolf and you're it.
It's funny you talk about the guy thinking you were hitting on him. So when I first went to America, I stayed in a small town outside Chicago, and called Naperville. And I remember and I was working there, and I remember the first few times going to a store, and yeah, I thought our sales associates were hitting on me because they were friendly and they were chatting and they were saying, "Hey, what do you do? And what are you doing over here? And what are you looking to buy?" And it's like, have a great day. And we don't get any of that in the UK, because if somebody said to you, "Have a good day" in the UK, you think, "What are they talking about?" But
Yeah.
yeah, over there it's like, "Oh my goodness, this is a." And then when I figured out after like this or 10 store, yeah, unless every woman in America is hitting on me,
Right.
I don't think they are. Which they may well
Yeah.
have been, but I don't think they are. This is just them being friendly.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was very refreshing to have that
Yeah, I
level
went
of
to the pub,
dialogue.
wanting, like you said, when you go somewhere exotic, you want to meet the people. And I went to a pub and I'm talking to the people and they all thought I was hitting on them. And I talked to my British friend. I'm like, what is going on here? He's like, you're at a pub talking to men?
Yeah, yeah. What are you doing? Absolutely, yeah,
I
yeah,
was like, oh, is there something wrong with that? He's like, yeah, they think you're hitting on them.
yeah. It's very weird, isn't it? We sort of speak the same language supposedly, but we even between America and the UK, even as so much of our culture is influenced by American culture and media, we're still quite different people at heart.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
kind of weird. Um, you, well, you said at the beginning actually that you're a very positive person and don't necessarily feel bad about things. Do you have hope for the future of other people, that we're going to get better and more connected and recognize that we're all part of one big thing and we're not all individual little people that have our own concerns and worries and things, but we are part of a bigger thing? Are you hopeful for the future of society, I guess?
I am. I see lots of people searching. I think
Yep.
there's a
Yes.
big spiritual movement.
Mm-hmm.
I think lots of people are getting caught up in things that aren't going to get them what they're looking for. But I am happy that they're searching, and I hope that they will continue to search and have experiences and just keep going, keep going, keep going. Eventually, you'll get where you're going. But if you just sit there thinking about stuff, you got to do. You have to participate.
Yeah.
Ask questions, have experiences, and work with the feedback. If you do something that is not working for you, do something different.
Yes. And yeah, I think that many people, I'm sure, try one thing, it doesn't work, and then okay, that's it.
Right. Yeah.
But if they thought about the rest of their life and they tried, the first food they tried they didn't like, oh, that's it, I don't like food now. What? You maybe try something else. Maybe you don't like olives, don't like anchovies, don't like pineapple on pizza. That's okay. There'll be something you do like. And I think, yeah, you just hope that people find the right thing
But I think it also,
relatively without being damaged.
yeah, I think it also has to do with trauma.
Yep.
I think a lot of people are looking for spirituality for answers when the issue is trauma. So you were saying how I said I'm pretty positive. I am. I have been my whole life. I don't think that is unique to me. I think that is trauma. If you have trauma, things are going to be anxious. You're going to be afraid. You're going to be negative. That's part of it. It's not your personality. It's the way that your brain is rewired because of that trauma. So when I said that, I'm different from people, that's what I mean. I don't have that suspicion and negativity, and I don't walk around in that at all. I'm gonna see the silver lining, and it's not because I'm toxic positive, because I think I'm realistic,
Yeah.
but I do have a lot of faith and I do have a lot of hope, and I'm gonna see the good in anything. We were in the Amazon and it was raining, and they were talking about how they hadn't got much rain because the rainforest is dwindling, and it was raining and it was pouring, and I was just like so grateful for the rain. I'm like, oh my god, look at that, that's wonderful. And I'm like that no matter what's happening, because there's a good side to everything. Even when the most horrible thing is happening, like a tornado or a landslide, it's cleansing. The earth is cleansing itself. It's rebalancing in a way that might have a lot of negative consequences for us, but in the big picture, it's restoring itself.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. And nature knows what it's doing.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure of that. I think a lot of the time we interfere with things. That's why things go wrong. But I think most of the time, all the time, nature knows what it's doing. Nature's not. If we believe everything's connected, then it's not going to be committing self-harm, is it? It's going to be doing
Right.
the right thing.
Yeah.
And we see it out of, even my wife's from Australia, and they get a lot of bushfires there, as increasingly are in America. And I've been there in the aftermath of a bushfire, and it is a terrible thing when it happens. But literally, you can go there a day or two later, and there are green shoots. The trees that were burnt to a cinder, they're sprouting again. And a lot of them, their seeds are germinated and are shared by extreme heat. So again, it knows what's happening. You go there relatively soon after what's been on the news headlines has been terrible actually, and it's replenished. It's it's cleansed, and it sort of goes again. I think nature knows what it's doing. My last question, if that's okay, is sometimes people find it hard to answer, but I'm not sure you will actually. Is you obviously hear a lot of challenging things from clients. Clients come to you sometimes not because they feel unhappy, they feel there's something wrong in their relationship, feel there's something wrong in their life, there's trauma that they share and impart to you. How do you protect and nourish your own mental and physical well-being? How do you How do you stay so positive and not carry other people's trauma with you?
Well, I think healthy boundaries,
Mhm.
and that is in the things that I say and do, but it's also energetic. So everybody has an aura,
Yeah.
and if you are healthy, this aura is stronger. And so I can be with somebody's pain without taking it on. I can be empathetic, I can, all of that, but it's not mine, and I don't pick it up. And I think that makes it better for them because now they don't have to take care of my feelings. This can just be about you. And one of the things that helps to, well, lots of things that help to keep that strong are basic stuff. Am I sleeping? Am I eating fresh alive foods? Am I socializing with healthy people? Do I have a spiritual life? So they're really basic.
Yeah.
And I find that especially younger people don't have good basics. We got to get good at the basics.
Yeah.
If you're good with the basics, then the big stuff doesn't happen.
Yeah. So sort out the small stuff and the big stuff looks after itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I do believe that. I'll put a lot of links into the notes about all the wonderful things that you do. Your website's fabulous. It's very giving. Your Fantasia platform is amazing. And yeah, you do a lot of stuff. But you seem to be energized by it as opposed to pulled down by it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it if it was a burden. I think that when you learn something, it's good to offer it to others. I don't push it on people, but if you want it, here it is.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. You've been incredibly generous and knowledgeable, and yeah, you've shared a lot, and I can't wait to listen back and remind myself what you just said. So thank you.
Thank you.